So here we are. I feel so happy to be here this morning, and I'm so excited to have Katie Hendricks joining us for our European version of our bridge calls. And they're also friendly for those of you who this time works for in the United States. So my name is Michelle Yasuda, and I'm the program director for the Foundation for Conscious Living's Big Leap Home online programs. And these programs support individuals, organizations, and communities in generating agency, connection, and creativity on our shared planet. And I appreciate you joining us for our Big Leap Bridge community calls, where we engage in Hendricks practices so we can build community while we discover, play, and learn together. And I can't think of a better way to do that than with Katie Hendricks herself. But before I introduce Katie, I just want to let everyone know that we have a new gathering space, a platform where you can connect with the Hendricks community. And it includes participants from Hendricks seminars, our leadership and transformation graduates, our Big Leap coaches, and you'll get all the latest information on the upcoming events and lots of resources to support you in moving from fear to presence. So if you're interested in joining that, I'll put some information in the chat and you can email me and I will send you an invitation. So I'm going to turn the call over to one of my favorite colleagues, Victor. And I so appreciate you being here with us today, Victor. And he's going to go over some tech and introduce Katie.
Thanks, Michelle. So I'm from the good evening part of our call from Europe. And I want to make a few quick announcements. If you need any tech, if you have any tech issues or need anything, you can directly chat with Michelle or me. Katie will be indicating when it's time to ask questions. When you want to ask a question, you can either raise a digital hand or you can raise your actual hands, and you can also combine the raising of hands with fear melters. You know, you can raise hands in different styles. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, you will know soon. And we have a tradition. We believe really that appreciation is a great water to swim and learn in. And we have a tradition to appreciate the facilitator. And I'm very privileged to do that with you, Katie. I could probably fill in the hour, and I won't. The first thing that came to my mind when I asked myself what I want to say is a loving MRI. And what I mean is that I really appreciate your ability to see through to the essence of things and people, and to do it with a lot of love and care and possibility, and that I truly appreciate. So over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Victor. And thanks to all of you who are carving out the time for us to be together today. I really love it that we're able to connect. The technology has accelerated to the extent that we can connect with each other. And also I want to invite you, those of you who maybe are not familiar with Zoom, that you can change the view so right now I have mine on gallery so I can see most everybody, but sometimes I'll change it to speaker because when someone is communicating, I really want to tune in to just them. And so you have that option that you can go back and forth. So I invite you to do that because it also kind of changes your perspective, your point of view. So one other thing I wanted to mention to you as we're getting started is to invite you to put questions that you have into the chat. So I'll save some time at the end to address those, and maybe we can all share about those questions. So if something pops up for you, instead of trying to hold on to it, just go ahead and put it in the chat so you can let go of it. So I wanted to focus on, I'm really glad to have the chance to focus on fear and fear signatures and the whole experience of fear, because it's very clear to me from looking at what's been going on in our country, especially over the last few months, that people don't realize how much we've been living in the fear soup for a very long time now. And there are a couple of things that I wanted to mention to you about fear. One of them is that on our Foundation for Conscious Living website, we have a large number of resources to assist you to befriend fear, to recognize it, to discern fear from anger, to notice the body signals that you're afraid, to begin to heal fear with FACT, facing, accepting, choosing, and taking action, all kinds of stuff, fear melters plus other activities. So I'm going to introduce some things to you today, and you can follow up with that with a lot of resources to support you. But the basic recognition is most people think, well, most people live from here up. So for a minute, I'd like you to just move all of your energy up here. And I'd like you to just imagine that this is your body. This is the extent of your body. And I'd like you to notice how much our society just discounts the rest of us. You know, they want our eyeballs, they want to put things in our heads, but they really don't care about the rest of you. But what happens in fear is that your whole point of view changes. So I'd like you to let yourself think about a recent time where you got scared, and let yourself feel scared for a moment. Usually we suppress it, but let yourself actually feel scared. And as you're feeling scared, I'd like you to look at different people in our community here this evening, and see if your point of view about them changes at all. Do you move from curious to more, who are these people? Do you move from a sense of connection to just even a little bit of, oh, I don't know you, the sense of disconnection of who are you? So just do that for a moment and notice, for example, if you just kind of hold your breath a little bit, you kind of hold your breath in a little bit and then look at other people. What I notice is that my eyebrows kind of come up and I pull back a little bit, and that whole is for me a little mini freeze. So just try that on for a minute, where you just take an in-breath and hold it at the top. And if you widen your eyes even just a little bit, I can feel my whole body goes into just a little bit of a freeze. So it doesn't have to be a big blown out experience to let you know that pretty much all the time now we're surrounded by fear, because people with power have decided to use fear as the fuel. So my intention for this hour is to provide some doorways into noticing kind of your everyday fear, or the fear that you carry around with you every day, and how that impacts you, and how you can shift from fear to presence in some fun and easy ways. So the thing I want to let you know about fear is that when I'm in fear, when you're in fear, you move out of your problem-solving brain. That becomes just shuts the door. So actually just imagine, just go ahead and put your hands over your eyes here, and also try to discern what's going on around you, just simply without using your eyes, which most of us, that's our gateway to other people. And so when I do that, I can feel the rest of me, like little sea anemone, they're little feelers that kind of go, what's going on? What's going on? And that's what fear does to us, is it separates us from the rest of our body intelligence, and it separates us from others. So some people have been using the phrase othering recently. And when you're in fear, people that are not you become others. and others means not like me. And that happens at a level that you're not aware of. So if I'm othering you, you look different. You're not like me. So just for a moment, I'd like you to notice other people in here and how they are not like you. So I'd like you to just notice, okay, this is, no, you're not like me. And I'd like you to notice what happens to your body sensations when you're looking at other people and going, nope, not like me. So one of the things I notice is that I get a little clench in my diaphragm. It's very slight, but there's just a little, and to me, all of these things are expressions of fear. So go ahead and just take a moment to shiver that off so you can regain your sense of presence in yourself, including your face, doing a little of what we call face flapping, where you put your head forward and you go, and it's very fun to make a sound because you can then let your lips flap. It's sort of like a little horse flapping, kind of. And I find it very hard to take things seriously once I've done that. And I also notice that my face feels so refreshed. So just notice how your face is right now and your level of tension. And then just do another face flap. So that's a very quick way of shifting out of fear. And it's very fun. And those of us who are of a certain age, we can do it really, really well. And so you can use us as models for how to let things really flap around. So one thing that happens in fear is that you become separate from other people. Okay, that whole sense of separation. And one of the other things, and other people then become the enemy. And so if you look at how disconnected most people are right now, in a sense of we just cannot cover or bridge this divide that people are experiencing, in my opinion, that's because we've been running from fuel, a source of fear. So here's another thing that happens in fear is that you are using adrenaline rather than the fuel of creativity and of connection. So I'd like you to let yourself, just as you're sitting there, or if you're moving around in whatever space you're in, I'd like you to let everything speed up. I'd like you to just let your movement speed up. I'd like you to let your breath speed up. I'd like you to think about all of the things that you're supposed to do and all of the things that you're not doing right now because you're on this call. And when are you going to get those all done? And I'd like you to just feel what that does to your sense of presence. That's adrenaline. So I notice when I've got adrenaline going that it feels a little, my hands start feeling a little sticky. I start feeling a kind of a little electrical feeling through my body. I feel a little bit of irritation around here. So take a moment now to notice your own adrenaline signals. And I invite you, if you're able to, if you have a little piece of paper or something nearby that you can write on, I invite you to write down body sensations now. Those adrenaline body sensations. So one of the other things that I'm noticing right now is it's almost, I feel just a little sweaty all over, as if I just kind of popped into a little bit of sweatiness. And to me, that is a clear adrenaline fear signal for me. So what I invite you to do is to, as we're exploring today, we have a whole continuum of fear signals. And I'd love for you to be able to recognize when you're first starting to get scared so that you can make the shift back into presence most easily. And that you can begin to recognize, I must be scared. So take a moment and write down, like for me, I would write down sweaty, a kind of breathlessness. It's not like I'm holding my breath, but I feel like I can't quite get enough breath. I feel a kind of free floating anxiety, like, uh-oh. So notice and jot down, may even be just one or two things, but I'd like you to start noting those, because we dismiss fear. We think, oh, and people say, oh, all you need to do is move from fear to love. Fear isn't real. It's just like, get over it. Fear is not real. In just the same way that Western civilization has ignored feelings for over 2,000 years, and the flow of feelings that move through us is really a source of our juiciness and aliveness. But if we separate ourselves from our feelings, then they come out in ways that sabotage our whole lives. So how many of you, I'm just thinking about the stuff I've read about fear, and people saying, just move from fear to love. And then I say, well, how do we do that? Because people just say, just go ahead, shift from fear to love. Go on. Okay. All right, everybody, just shift from fear to love. Okay. All right, now let's move on. And we have like no technology for moving from fear to love. And so the technology that we've invented over the last few years allows you to befriend fear. So I'd like you to just see if right now you would be willing to make friends with fear. So mostly it's we got to conquer fear. We got to just, we just got to push it down. We got to push through it. And you know what all of those are? That's fight. That push through it, just go ahead and do it. That's the fight form of fear. So notice if that's familiar to you. I'm just going to, I'm feeling like, I'm not going to be able to do this, but I'm just going to do it anyway. When I do that, I notice that I get all my energies up in my shoulders. And we think that we're moving in strength, but we're actually caught in fight. So here's one thing that I'd like you to assume is that if you're stuck in any way, fear is a part of that. So even if you are angry, even if there's a legitimate upset, even if something has happened that you're going, oh, damn, I'm so annoyed about that. I'd like you to just assume that fear is wired in. So here I'm going to stand up also because I don't like to sit for very long, but I want to share with you that fear is not like the other feelings. So I'd like you to think about something that you recently got angry about, like there's something that was fundamentally unfair, something that happened, somebody that broke an agreement, and you felt angry. Just tune into that feeling in your body. So for anger starts between your shoulder blades. So anger starts right here between your shoulder blades, and it's a kind of a pulling feeling. And it is in response to a fundamental unfairness. And we all, like all animals, we get our hackles up. So just do this with me. So, okay, so all animals, when we get angry, and that brings energy up over the top of our heads. And we, like mammals do, gorillas. So that is anger. So notice that's the back of your body. Now, put your hands on your belly and think about, but with anger, see, if I express my anger and I handle the trespass, that energy then dissipates. Okay. And if you feel sad, so think about a recent loss, something that, and there's been a lot of loss that we've been experiencing this year. Feeling of heaviness in your chest, in your throat, that sense of, that's your sadness zone. So if you feel sad and you cry, you express your feeling, then it's like a rainstorm and that just moves through. And put your hands on your tummy, on your belly button, and just jiggle it a little bit. So jiggle your belly. This is your fear zone. This is where fear starts. It doesn't start in your back. It starts here and it moves up. And so adrenaline, when we're feeling speeded up, adrenaline moves up our bodies. And here's the thing about fear is that it doesn't go away. So notice when you jiggled your belly and you feel that little, it's still there. So fear circuitry is not the same as sadness or anger. Fear circuitry is kind of wrapped around all of the other feelings. So if I'm feeling fear, I like to think of it as I'm an electrical pole, and the fear is like wires that are coming out and they're all going because they're not connected. But when I befriend my fear and I do fear melters, I hook up that juice and I'm then able to use it. So the fear then becomes creative energy. It becomes aliveness. And one of our psychiatrists from years ago, Fritz Perls, said something really profound. He said that fear is excitement without the breath. So if you hook up, befriend your fear, and you claim those circuits, then you actually give yourself more fuel. You can use fear as a fuel by turning toward it, befriending it, learning how to use fear melters. So I wanted you, because most people will say, just get over it, or they'll try to talk you out of it. Like, well, there's nothing to be scared of. Stop being scared because there's nothing to be scared of. And, as if you could just do that. And so we then judge ourselves because we're not able to just turn off the fear switch without any knowledge of how to do that. So, and, keep writing down body sensations that you notice, because each of you have a unique signature. There are 4 expressions of fear and there are 4 fear signatures, but each of you use those in a slightly different way. And I'm going to lead you through that in just a moment, how to find your fear signature. But one of the other things I'd like you to do before we get into that is to brainstorm with me the ways that we talk about fear without calling it fear. And so I'd like you to use the chat for this. And so we can make a whole list that you can then take off of the chat room. So people will hardly ever say, I really feel scared, out in public. So imagine being in a meeting at the office, which you probably haven't been in for months, but just imagine you're in a meeting at the office and something happens and you feel scared. How many of you would just say, hey, I'd like to share that I was feeling scared when you said that? We don't do that. We're trained not to do that, stiff upper lip and all of those things we've inherited. So here are some code words. Uncomfortable. See, I just felt uncomfortable when you said that. Okay, so that's a code word for fear. I'm nervous. I'm nervous about this decision that we have to make. So that's a code word for fear. And just a little anxious. I'm feeling just, a little anxious. And then we go off into other words like, I'm just feeling, I'm not quite here today. It's not you, it's really me. We sort of go off into vagueness. So if you've got other code words that you've heard or that you use, go ahead and jot them down and put them in the chat, and we'll come back later and gather those all up. So here's what I'd like you to assume, that when you're stuck, you're scared. And so if you address fear, even if it's just for a few minutes, it will allow you to presence yourself so you can actually respond. Because in fear, we go 2-dimensional, we go into reptilian brain, We can't use whole body thinking. We use survival strategies, which are really, smash. So we fight, smash, we run away, we freeze up to become invisible, or we faint so that we play dead. So you may think, oh, nobody does that, but I'd like you to just notice that all of those expressions are going on around us all the time, but usually in a form that we just accept this as part of our human connection right now. And the amount of fear that we're feeling makes us unable to actually work together. So I think it is paramount to our future as a species that we befriend fear so that we can befriend others, because the only result of fighting back, I've been getting a lot of emails about fighting back. We need to fight back. Now we need to keep fighting back because there's more stuff to keep fighting back against. And then what we do is just make the fear machinery bigger. And it's very tempting because fighting back feels like we're doing something. Whereas actually just befriending your fear feels like, oh, I'm in it. And then I get more fearful. So I want to just take a moment and celebrate that there is a reliable way to move from fear to presence. And the fear melters that I developed several years ago, our community has done all kinds of refining and development of them. So we have a very rich experience over several years now of people using fear melters. And what happens when you let yourself do 2 minutes of fear melters, which we'll do in just a little bit. 2 minutes of fear melters changes your state, changes your emotional state, so that you move from the separation and the disconnection and the othering that comes from fear into presence, possibility, seeing others as allies, seeing others as collaborators. And in that, we can begin to create new solutions, new structures, new connections. We also know that the antidote to addiction is connection, but that in fear, we can't connect. Not only can I not connect with others, but when I'm in fear, I can't connect with me either. I can just feel like I'm floating in space by myself, that there's nobody there, that nobody sees me. So a lot of the source of depression and discomfort really comes from being in the fear soup. And because we've been in so long, there's that old story about the boiling, how you boil a frog. It's just put them in warm water and then just heat it up so gradually that the frog doesn't realize it's getting boiled. We've been boiled in fear for years and years and years now. So I'd like you to be patient with yourself, to be loving with yourself as you're beginning to unwind. It's almost like the barbed wire of fear that's surrounded us, and moving our way through all of that. I'd love for you to give yourself some time to make that shift and then to keep practicing so that you can do that reliably and you feel confident that you can do that. So we have a whole series of videos on the Foundation website about finding your fear signature. So you can use what we're doing today as a kind of a introduction to that, and then you can go more deeply into how do I find my fear signature with friends or just by watching the video. But today I'd like to do this with you all together. I'd like everybody to think of a recent upset. So, and the upset could be, just something that's continued to feel charged for you. It keeps coming up in your mind. And I'd like you to recreate that for yourself vividly, like what time of day and where were you and who else was there that you can remember, and what was the weather? You know, what are you smelling and seeing right now? What are your senses telling you? And what I'd like you to do is, first of all, as you're recreating the feeling of it, I'd like you to exaggerate anything that your body is doing. So, for example, you might feel a hunkering, like you want to kind of go back inside your shell. Exaggerate that. Okay. Or you might have felt like you really wanted to yell at somebody and you didn't. So get ready to yell at them. Exaggerate whatever. Yes, beautiful. Whatever you were doing, exaggerate that. Great. So the more you exaggerate it in your body, the more you're going to be able to find your fear signature. So you might have felt like, you might have felt like, I just got to get out of here. And you might not have been able to. So notice if there was any, I got to get out of here move, and let yourself exaggerate how you felt that in your body. Yeah, beautiful. Some of you, like me, you might have thought, well, if I just get really still, nobody will see me and it'll just move on by and I'll be okay. So notice if there's a kind of a freezing that happens, and exaggerate that, exaggerate the way you do that. And there may have been just a sense of overwhelm, like all this stuff coming at you, and you just felt sort of bowled over by it. So you can have all of those things, or many of those things, happening at the same time. Yeah, so recalling the upset and then letting your body exaggerate what you're doing. So notice where in you feel that the most. What kinds of body sensations? Heat. Any body sensation, you can feel the shape of it, feel how it's moving around in you. And then just for a moment, just jot down what you noticed. Just blurt on paper. It doesn't have to make any sense. Just go ahead and jot down images or body sensations or what you felt like doing. Just blah, 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 blah. Just blurt on paper for a minute or so. And while you're doing that, I'm going to have some water. Beautiful. Also, you can continue writing whatever else we're doing. Something else pops up, go ahead and put it down, because this is all part of you befriending your fear signature. Because your body, your whole body, is going to register that you're scared before your frontal cortex gets it. Body sensations are 4 to 10 times faster than your cerebral synapses. So your feelings get to your brain faster than your thoughts. So going in through creating change through your body is much more effective, much faster than if you're trying to talk yourself into change. And one of the things we've noticed is that you cannot talk anybody out of being scared, including yourself, although people do it all the time. They say, there's nothing to be scared of. You know, I'm seeing the same thing you are, and there's nothing to be scared of. That's where they're kind of just buck up and press on. And what that does is drive those sensations deeper in your body and gives you more of a sense of disconnection. So you've done your exaggeration. So I'd like you to just review that with me. And did you feel what we call the fight expression of fear, where you wanted to, I usually like to take a boxer stance, and I get into kind of, that a fighty feeling. So that kind of, ugh. And we mistake that for anger, but it's actually a defense. So fight is the thing, it is the thing that gorillas do to try and make other people go away. That is actually, that's not anger, that's a fear response, and that's the fight. It's like, don't come near me because I'm going to get you. But it's mostly we're faking it. So that fight is that response, getting your chin out. So just notice if you had an element of that. So, this is for you to keep getting a sense of, oh, this is what I do when I get scared. So I can begin to recognize that I'm scared early on and be able to make a shift. Now, how many of you felt even a little bit of I'm out of here, like even some part of you leaving, your head leaving, your thoughts leaving? So the flee move, the fight and the flee, I think, are the two most well-known expressions of fear. And the flee move can happen both just physically, I'm out of here, but it can also happen that you do something we call fleeing up. So did any of you kind of flee up into your head like, I got to figure out what's going on here. I can't really, this doesn't make any sense. You kind of get up in your head and you can try to analyze it. You can get into judgment about, getting critical of other people. That's a flee move. You can also flee forward, like, well, I'll just change that and then that won't be an issue anymore. Or I'll go out into the future and it'll be better then. Okay. Or sometimes in seminars, people will say, well, I'm feeling okay now, but what if? What if in the future, I go home and I'm trying to share these skills with somebody and they don't know anything about them? That's a flee forward. So fleeing is very, very common. You can be listening to somebody and you're already fleeing into, oh dear, I don't know what to do about this, what they're saying to me. And so you have fleed out of presence. So fleeing is also very common. So notice if you have any flee markers that you can notice in your body. Now, did anybody notice any kind of becoming like an icicle or like a rabbit, a deer in the headlights? Yes, that sense of, yeah. And you can do it very subtly. Like I used to be able to, I could get so invisible as a kid that I could sit around the table with adults and they would actually not even see me. And they'd be talking about all kinds of cool adult things. And I get to find out stuff because I could become invisible. So I'm not saying that these skills are bad and wrong. They can be very useful to be able to become invisible. The freeze response is what all animals use if they feel like prey and there's a predator around. So you may have been like, I, as a little girl, had a very angry father. So fighting back didn't work. He was much bigger and much louder than me. And I saw what happened when he got angry at my two brothers. So my fear response was to get really still. So still is also a form of freeze. So just notice if you had any kind of gathering in towards your core or actually coming up into your head, but kind of hunkering, that's also a form of freeze. I think the one that's most invisible for people is faint, and that some people don't even recognize that as a form of fear. But I'd like you to notice when you were in your recreation of your upset, did you feel any kind of just like being pulled under, or like energy was just draining out of you, or a sense of confusion, like you just couldn't figure the thing out, or like you got hit broadsided and it was like, whoa, what was that? That's faint. And faint is fear that's gone on for a long time that makes us just feel like giving up, just kind of collapsing and, getting, watching television. Those are all expressions of faint, where you've kind of lost your resourcefulness. And here's the thing. You probably have a combination of all of these. And I call it a combo plate. And as you get more acquainted with your fear signature, it actually allows you to connect with yourself, to befriend yourself, like, oh, honey, you can kind of put your arm around yourself like, oh, yeah, you're scared. And that recognition is really the love scoop. that welcoming is one of the fear melters. So what I'd like to do is to teach you the fear melters and have you notice what happens to your upset. So I'd like you to just go back into your upset and your reaction to your upset. Yeah, beautiful. So that you're getting, when you exaggerate what you're doing in your body, that brings what you're doing to your awareness. So rather than going up, I'd like you to go in and exaggerate that. Now, we're going to just try on the fear melters and see what happens. So I'd like you to first try on oozing. And oozing is like moving like seaweed in the ocean, or like a sea anemone that is letting the water come through. Or like if you haven't eaten today, like I haven't yet, it's like hot fudge over ice cream. It's that oozing, melting. And notice any place in your body that's feeling a little rigid or a little held, take an ooze through there. So that's oozing, and you can do oozing through your whole body. So these are things, once you've learned how to do them, you can do them really big at home on your own, and you can do what I call little mini melters out in public. So notice also, let's do sumo. So those of you who are able to stand and want to, I'll do this first standing, then I'll do it seated. So sumo is where you get your legs wide and you really come down into feeling your legs, feeling your feet. And I notice as I do that my out breath gets fuller. I can feel, oh, here I am. And that sense of being in yourself, like feeling yourself as a tree or a mountain. The way that you can do this seated is letting yourself shift from one sits bone to the other and feeling yourself. So if you're enjoying standing, please continue. But sometimes, you're in a meeting and you can't do that. So you can feel your sits bones, and you can also feel your feet. What I'm doing right now, I invite you to do, is to do a little bouncing, letting your heels bounce. So you lift them up and then let them drop. So sometimes we have the bounce going up, let the bounce go down. So lift and drop. And just feel that reverberation through your heels. That's another way of doing sumo. And just notice how that impacts your fear episode. And then when you're frozen, like I can get, the fear melter is, even when you're frozen, you can start wiggling your fingers and toes. So go ahead and start wiggling your fingers and toes and imagine that you're thawing out. So that the wiggling begins to move up your fingers, it begins to move up from your toes until it involves, I like to wiggle enough that I can feel my whole body wiggling and I can actually hear it in my voice. So I know that you're muted, so I invite you to go ahead and let yourself make a ha 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 on the out breath so you can actually feel the wiggling coming all the way up through you. And then, of course, there's also face flapping, which is a lovely little mini melter. That's a little mini fear melter. And then one of my favorites that I do on Monday mornings here from California, our loops and scoops, is to reach out and bring in some love and give it to yourself. And reach out and bring in some love and give it to yourself. And give it to yourself anywhere that your body has been saying, oh, here, please, oh, over here. And you can reach into a love pool. You can reach out to someone that you know you love and feel that love and bring it back to you. Because in faint, let yourself keep doing love scoops. In faint, we go passive and we stop interacting with life. And so the reaching out and coming back to you is reestablishing your connection with the world. And let yourself now for a minute or so combine all of those together in a way that feels pleasurable to you. So you have oozing, and you have sumo, and you have wiggling, and you have love scoops. So I like to sometimes put them together. So like I'll do a wiggle scoop, or I'll do a sumo wiggle. So I'm doing my bouncing and my wiggling. So you can play with these. And here's the cool thing is you don't have to get it right because all fear melters will lead you to presence. So just 2 minutes will change your state. Now, there's one other thing I wanted to add to this and then refer you to the website because there are a whole lot of things that will support your learning how to put this together. Fear melters bring you into presence, but it doesn't mean that you've rewired your nervous system. When you have done fear melters, you have an opportunity to rewire your nervous system to enjoy more presence. So I like to put together fear melters plus. So fear melters plus is something that I invite you to invent for yourself. So I want to share a few of them with you, and we have more on our website. So you've just done fear melters, so you can let yourself do a few more fear melters. So fear melters plus 3 connected breaths. So just let yourself have an easy belly breath. And then another one. And sometimes in the middle of the breath, I'll get another wiggle wants to come through. So then I'll have a wiggle breath. So that allows you to enjoy being in the present, free of fear. So 3 connected breaths is one. So fear melters plus an appreciation. So I'd like you to actually give yourself an appreciation. So I appreciate me for being here today. I appreciate me for trying these things out. I appreciate myself for playing with my fear, which I never knew how to do. So just give yourself 2 or 3 or 4 appreciations. And then I'd like you to appreciate the opportunity to learn something about fear from your upset. So I'd like you to find something to appreciate about what you learned from your upset. Like, oh, I appreciate that I see another opportunity to stand in my power when I'm scared. Oh, I'm appreciating that I'm trying on something new, even though I felt scared in the middle of it. So you can appreciate, and you might feel scared again, and then you just add in some more fear melters. So what you're doing is gradually rewiring yourself to be resourceful, responsive, rather than reactive in fear. So another one that you'll find on the website is what we call essence pace. And essence pace is one of my very favorite things to do with fear melters, as a fear melters plus. I can do this with you. We don't have to move around. So let's just do a little mini essence pace. So I'd like you to use your hands, and I'd like you to let your hands start to speed up. And I'd like you to let your hands move in a way that's faster and faster and faster and faster and faster until you become unpresent. Yeah. And I notice that my breath stops and I sort of get more frozen. Okay, now let your hands start to slow down and slow down until they get really, really slow. And I notice I lose my presence more toward sleepiness when I'm going slow. So what I'd like you to play with now is letting your hands speed up and then slow down. Speeding up, getting faster, and then beginning to slow down. And what I'd like you to be noticing is that there's a pace of moving where I can be aware of me and I'm aware of you. And that if I get outside of that pace, I either lose track of you and my environment, or I lose connection with me. So essence pace is this very sweet space where I'm able to act with awareness of both me and others. It's very, very delicious, worth exploring. So I invite you, you can do essence pace breathing, because usually we get our breathing, it's like when we're scared, our breathing gets faster. So we can find essence pace breathing. Essence pace is a great way to assist you in making effective decisions, in moving through your life with maximum presence. So that's another Fear Melters Plus. So I invite you to go to the website and look at the various Fear Melters. There's lots to explore with Fear Melters, and then also lots to explore with Fear Melters Plus in building your confidence in your ability to shift and to be more present. So I'm noticing that we have a few more minutes. So if we've had any questions that have come in on chat, we can answer those.
All right.
Do we have any, Michelle?
Yeah. Let me go ahead and pull those up. So let's see where we are here. Okay, so we had a question, so I'll just read it as it was. I noticed that at times when I think I'm sad, upset, angry, my body responds in an adrenaline dump, fear. So
Yes.
It feels like my default emotion is then fear. Is this something that can be rewired, that default of fear tacked onto other emotions?
Yes, in fact, that's exactly what we're talking about, is that fear is often wrapped around our other feelings. So we really can't get access to them, to what's really most deeply going on. Am I actually sad about this, or am I angry? Or am I feeling joy that I'm repressing? So it's not just the more volcanic, or what we sometimes consider negative emotions. So what I have found is that fear melters unwind, and really unwrap that, either barbed wire or sarcophagus feeling of fear, so that you can breathe more freely. You can feel your ability to also problem solve. Because when you're in presence, you can use your prefrontal cortex, which is designed over many thousands and thousands of years to help you solve problems. But when you're in fear, you have no access to it. So what I was saying is that fear is different than the other emotions, and that as you befriend fear, you get access to more creative juice.
All right. And then we just had a question just come in from Mary. Can you talk about how I could use this when surfing? I am a beginner, and even though I've had lessons and go out regularly, I run from the waves.
Yes. Well, you run from the waves. You literally run from the waves. So what I like to do first is to exaggerate, just as I was asking you to do with your upset, exaggerate what it is that you actually do when you're in the waves. So you can see if you're getting caught in fight, flee, freeze, or faint, or, a combo of them. My sense is that's what's going to be most fun and most effective for you is to do fear melters before you get on your surfboard, and then to let yourself focus on this whole essence pace, because the essence pace is what's going to allow you to see the wave that's for you and to catch the wave and to enjoy the ride rather than thinking you have to, if you're in speeded up, you can't actually feel the rhythm of the waves. And it's such a great analogy too, that when I'm in fear, I often will turn my back to the ocean and then the waves get me. And when I'm in fear, I can't really see the opportunity to ride the wave of creativity that comes through, and to enjoy the ride and to know when to get off. So I think of the ocean, that our essence is really like the ocean, and that we can return to and rest in the ocean of our essence. And then with fear melters and learning to be in a friendly relationship with our fear, we can experience the waves as creativity. And be able to right ourselves, even if we get spilled by the waves from time to time. All right. So I see something down here that's from Darlene, something about,
let's see,
what to do to notice.
Uh,
I think it just came in.
Somebody was asking about faint. I was just saying my experience.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, you were sharing your experience. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
So
there was a question earlier about how you could share this with toddlers. How could you use this as a parent with toddlers?
Oh, you just do it with them. Yeah, they'll do it very, very easily. You can use little props and squeaky toys and peekaboo, and but the like you could use a scarf for oozing, and wiggling, of course, would be very, very fun too. So yeah, I think you just play.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I was just thinking that we can continue this conversation on the network. So I encourage you, if you are not a member of the Big Leap Home Network, go ahead and email me. I put my email in the chat, and I will send you an invitation, and we can continue this conversation. Such an important one that could go on forever. So yeah, wonderful. So did you want to complete now, Katie?
Yeah, I think that we're coming up on the end of the hour, and I appreciate very much. I was looking around and seeing your participation, and I love doing this in groups because we can learn from each other and enjoy each other's creative expression. And so I really appreciate you being here, and would love to have you continue being part of the community and enjoying what we're all creating together. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for being here, and lots of love scooping and love to you all. And So shall I just leave you to close?
Yes, I was going to say
Okay.
that I want to thank you so much. What an amazing class. What a beautiful resource. And I want to thank everyone for joining us and thank Victor. So why doesn't everybody unmute and say goodbye? And yeah, we can end that way.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Victor, and thank you, Michelle. Mwah.
Thank you for being so clear, Katie.
Thank you.